This show is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com. This show is supported by Blueland. Each year, Americans throw away 25% more trash from Thanksgiving to New Year's. This year, let's turn our New Year's resolutions into actions that make a difference by reducing single-use plastics. Blueland makes that easy. Blueland believes that hard-working, clean products can be the norm, not the exception. From cleaning sprays and toilet bowl cleaner to dishwasher and laundry detergent tablets, Blueland's 100% microplastic-free, EPA Safer Choice certified formulas are safe to use around family, pets, and plants. You'll love not having to choose between the safe option and what actually gets your house clean. Blueland products are independently tested to perform alongside major brands, and the formulas are free from dyes, parabens, and harsh chemicals. Plus, Blueland is a certified B Corp and certified cruelty-free by Leaping Bunny. Their formulas are EPA's Safer Choice certified, and many have received the Gold Material Health Certificate from Cradle to Cradle. And right now, Blueland has a special offer for listeners. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/PRX. You don't want to miss this. blueland.com/PRX for 15% off. That's blueland.com/PRX to get 15% off.
Hello, welcome back to Geek Warning, the cycling tech-focused podcast from Escape Collective. I'm Dave Rome, and joining me this week, we've got Suvi. Hello, Suvi.
Hello, Dave.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
It has been. It was last time we were at a pod together.
Yes, you've been to Velofollies since, which we'll get to talking about, and I've been to Tour Down Under since, which we won't get to talking about because we did that last week in last week's episode. But also joining us this week, Ronan. Welcome back.
Thank you. Missed last week, yeah, when I was not in Adelaide. So good to not quite as big a gap as Suvi had there, but yeah, good to be back.
Yes. The listeners missed you, and I missed you as well, not having you in Adelaide.
Maybe next time.
Yes, please. All right. So this week we have a bit to get through. We have Suvi coming back recently from Velofollies, which turns out to be a surprisingly large trade show. There's some talk of drop bars and whether you can or can't use them in certain big races. And of course, it wouldn't be a Geek Warning without some industry news. And sadly, it's not always happy news as of late. So we'll get into that. Of course, we have something on our mind, and this episode will wrap up with the return of Ask a Wrench, this time with Zach Edwards out of the Boulder Grupetto. Before we get into it, a little bit of housekeeping. If you are hearing ads in this episode, that's because you're on the free feed. Just a reminder, members of Escape Collective get access to everything Escape Collective does, including all full versions of our podcasts. That includes Ask a Wrench at the end of this episode. But members also don't hear ads. So if you don't like ads and you want more content, then please become a member. Sign up at escapecollective.com/join. All right, Suvi, let's talk about Velofollies. What is Velofollies?
Oh, I actually don't know what it means, but it is a trade show. I'd like to say it's a trade show, but it's a consumer-facing show. So there's been two opinions whether you call it a trade show or not a trade show because of that. So
a cycle
3 days.
bicycle show.
Exactly. It's full of bikes, a show for bikes. It's in Belgium, quite close to Roubaix, just across the border.
Isn't it the Velo Bike Folly Madness? Bike Madness in French? I mean, I think that's the direct translation.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And did it live up to its name then?
It did. It did definitely live up to its name. I expected it to be quite busy because there's been a lot of hype about it over the last couple of years that it would be the show to replace Eurobike and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
I do not know whether that will happen, but it was definitely extremely busy. The first day when I got there were queues of people, lines of people waiting all the way to the outside of the expo halls, waiting for the gates to open to get in. And that is dedication I have not witnessed at any other trade or bike show in my life.
Yes.
Because I could not even fit into the building through the revolving doors to join the queue because it was just so full. And this was 20 minutes before the gates were about to open.
Okay, well, that's a good sign. And yeah, I think that it's worth noting that you have provided some coverage on Escape Collective as well from the show. So there's two pretty extensive galleries, which I would say a lot more jam-packed than I had expected from a show that I hadn't really heard of prior to you attending it. So yeah, definitely a big show, and definitely a lot of new product releases that again, I don't think any of us had really expected leading into it.
Yeah, there were a few, because that's what I also wasn't sure about going into it, whether there will be many brand new products because of the consumer facing aspect of it, that usually brands are not willing to show products ahead of time to the consumers. But there were quite a few new products that were launched either on the opening day or around it. But then also there was, say, Merida was teasing the new Reacto very boldly at their stand, even though I think that's not being publicly teased, but at the show you could definitely tell that it's coming. So yeah,
were photos allowed?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a stand. There is a photo of that stand in the gallery, so
yeah,
if there was a no photo sign, I did not see it.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Well, yeah, one of the things that I think came that week and coincided with the show was Pinarello's new dropbar mountain bike. What is that thing called?
It's Gravel MX.
Okay.
That's what it is called.
Yep. And then probably 24 hours after that, we got news out of Lifetime Grand Prix that the Leadville mountain bike race, a really iconic marathon mountain bike race, had updated its rules to say no more drop handlebars in our race. You now have to race with a flat handlebar, making it very much a mountain bike race, or reminding people it is a mountain bike race. What was the general sentiment there as far as like drop bar mountain bikes? Did you see many of them? Was there talk of these rules there, or did this news break after you'd left?
I think the rule that news broke on this Sunday, which was the last day of the show. Okay. So it was like 2 days after this bike got launched. It was certainly one of the most talked about bikes of the show, and also one of the most divisive, same as in the comments in the article that we published on this bike. Yeah, it's a divisive topic. I don't think people. Yeah, I think people were mostly arguing about the design of the bike and whether it is a smart idea to put a drop bar on a mountain bike frame in general. So Leadville wasn't part of the conversation of the show.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth noting that the same week we also saw Pivot release a drop bar version of its hardtail mountain bike. Again, it's just its regular hardtail mountain bike that they've added a drop bar to that you can buy. And yeah, I guess for me, I'm left wondering like whether this news out of Leadville will really hurt the interest in this style of bike. I mean, what do you think will happen there? Do you think we'll still see the industry pushing this idea of drop bars on a mountain bike?
I think it's a hard one to answer because I think it's
too early to tell.
Yeah, and I think it's a subjective take on it. I think that there will be more of these. It's clearly a trend because there's been multiple brands have launched their own versions of this. And the product manager from Pinarello that I spoke with went as far as saying that hardtail mountain bikes are dead as a category, which was quite a controversial statement. Perhaps he was more referring to Pinarello's hardtail mountain bikes, not broadly to all hardtail mountain bikes.
Dead or repurposed?
Well, that's the question.
Because that's what's happened, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is not a mountain bike anymore, Ronan. It's a gravel bike now. Because
no, but it is the same frame though, isn't it?
No, of course not. It is the same frame.
I guess my fundamental, I think this returns to a topic we've done on Geek Warning before, but to me, it's just like lazy design. The bike was designed for a certain purpose and for a certain position on the bike and with a certain reach in mind. And then they're just adding like another, 70, 80 mil to the reach, and then just saying that same frame geometry is perfectly fine still. I fundamentally disagree with it.
It's not only lazy, Dave, it's also counterproductive, I think, because if hardtail mountain bikes are dead and drop bar gravel bikes or drop bar mountain bikes are the new gravel bike or whatever, can we just like the frustrating part for me here is like I like the idea of this. It sounds like fun. It looks like fun. But just repurposing a mountain bike frame is I think jumping on a trend rather than taking a step back and, well, what would, if we want to go in this direction, what would you actually need to design? What should the frame geometry look like? Is it hardtail front suspension or is it full suspension? You know, I as I said, I like the idea here, but I think we just need to skip to the part where gravel bikes have full suspension, or there are more full suspension gravel bike options, rather than this sort of, which seems like it can only ever be a stopgap, converting a hardtail frame into a drop bar.
I think you're right. I mean, suspension is successful in mountain bike and popular in mountain bike, and is sort of become the status quo in marathon mountain bike, just because it is the more efficient, smoother, faster option. So I do think you're right. And yeah, having spent a bunch of time on that trek out as of late, there are certain situations where that bike is truly exceptional. So I really need to stop bringing that bike up, and I just need to write my review on it, because I think people are just getting sick of me teasing it. But yeah, I need to get moving on that. But I think you're right. This use of a modern mountain bike hardtail, this repurposing of it and putting drop bars on it and trying to resell it to people, I think is a stopgap and perhaps not the right move for the industry either. I think, yeah, as you said, Ronan, it's not, that geometry wasn't designed that way. You know, it's being misused in some cases. So,
and we've discussed at length in this podcast before the challenges that using a mountain bike frame introduces, and you know, it's one of those, you kind of do it just to try it out, see what it's like, but like the better solution ultimately is going to be something that maybe visually looks the same, but actually the geometry is significantly different. And I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. Like, I don't think Pinarello is the brand who are going to lead the innovation in that way, so it's not surprising they've repurposed a frame, but hopefully other brands will are probably already working on something like this.
Yeah, and I think like the likes of Pivot and Pinarello, like they arguably, I would assume, were sitting on stock of these frames and have perhaps given them a new paint job and repurpose it with a new build kit. Like, it's not like there's a lot of investment in these. So yeah, I think it's, you know, maybe just they're throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, but I don't think it's the right answer. And I think going back to what you said, Ronan, like we have spoken about it before, but like as a real quick recap, like the issues here is that a modern mountain bike has a really long reach, designed to be paired with a short stem and a flat straight handlebar, and adding a drop handlebar to that really extends out the reach, and you don't really have any stem length to play with because those bikes are already designed with short stems in use. And so you've basically completely changed the length of the bike or the effective reach. And how pros have been navigating that is they size down, and so that way they get 30-40 millimeters out of that reach number, and they can then use the drop bar. But that also then creates a stack issue, so the handlebar is very low. That works well for a professional cyclist, not so great for an amateur. So yeah, that's fundamentally, I think, like the big broad issues, but then you also get into like weight distribution and handling and weight on the front wheel and all these other things that come from adapting the wrong geometry for the wrong purpose. So
I mean, at the same time, we have this trend towards more progressive positions on the road, which, you know, some gravel racers are also adopting, and so that extra frame reach maybe looks tempting on paper, but there's more to it than just the reach figure.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Do you think it was the right decision from Leadville then to ban drop bars? Because you are touching on the complications that they do add to the setup, but clearly the pros, I mean, they've not been the fastest on the course with drop bars, but they also mentioned, I think, Leadville's the safety aspect, and that's something that Kate did come up in the conversations that I had at Velofollies about this bike, that no, you should not be riding. If you need this much suspension, you should not have a drop bar. It's unsafe. And that at that point, you need a flat bar. So is that true?
I'm getting strong UCI vibes here from Lifetime Grand Prix. First of all, the assumption is, they've just made this rule. But then Payson McElveen was in the comment section on the article that Josh wrote on those new rules on Escape Collective, and he was saying actually the riders requested this, and then he did a post on his own Instagram, and he had actually said that Keegan Swenson was one of the riders that brought this up at a meeting some of the athletes had with lifetime last year. And so the question for me now is less so about why are you doing this, and more so about, well, if the riders are citing fairness because it's so expensive and to have multiple frames and get bikes set up for a couple of races per year where they're using drop bar mountain bikes, why then is Lifetime coming out and saying it's a safety intervention? And, you know, as was rightly pointed out in our comments as well, I think the fact that it's a two-way course where you go out and back in the same roads is a bigger safety issue than the type of handlebar riders are.
Significantly so. But yeah, I think also people saying like drop bars have never been a safety issue, I think are probably failing to forget that we're talking about a mix of flat handlebars and drop bars in use, and you have all these bars at different heights and different ways of holding them. And traditionally in a pack start for like a cross country race, everyone has their elbows out, everyone has their hands on the grips, and there is no bar to hook onto. Whereas when you get a person in that position and then put them in a mixed pack with people also on drop bars, all of a sudden there are multiple angles and multiple different angled elbows and different hooks of bars to get entangled amongst each other. And so I think there is a safety argument, but I think fundamentally, like Ronan, it comes back to what you said, which is nothing's quite as dangerous as just like sending riders in opposite directions at high speed.
I would love to know like how many crashes have there been from flat bars hooking drop bars or vice versa. Is that, I don't know, I'm just wondering, is that, and perhaps, you know, it is a safety and a fairness intervention, but it's the conflicting communications, I think, that has me getting UCI vibes here. Yep.
So anyway, I guess expect to see many more riders adopting the aero position on their fork legs, on the fork crown.
This is the thing. It's like when you start banning things, you're onto the slippery slope. And like, I'm not saying we should be advocating for holding your suspension, but yeah, it's just the Lifetime Grand Prix, or was it Leadville or Unbound? Sorry, started a few years ago banning aero bars, and it just escalates so quickly. Where you ban one thing and then riders turn to something else, and you have to ban that, and it's just a whack-a-mole at some point.
And the next thing you know, you're measuring people's socks.
Yes.
All right. Suvi, what else did you see at the show?
Well, a lot of other bikes as well. But I think the one other talked about bike was the Van Rysel concept bike. So concept bikes haven't really been a big thing maybe in the last few years, except that Van Rysel did the Gravaa concept bike. Maybe it was a couple years ago now, a few years ago. And they've now done another concept bike, which is basically supposed to double your FTP or quadruple your FTP. I do not really know, because it's basically FTP squared, which would then mean it's quadruple. I don't know. Anyway.
How?
Well, it's the concept.
Because it has an e-motor. Yeah, it is an e-bike, yeah.
Okay. It is an e-bike. Yeah, so it's got a Mahle M40 mid-drive motor that they've specifically tuned for the bike. So nothing about this, because I feel I was very much too pragmatic about this bike. I was like, well, it's not road legal, it's not this, it's not that, but it's not meant to be. So they basically, their whole design team, like 40 people, went crazy and just worked on this concept that some parts of it could become reality one day. So they created this very aero bike that can reach speeds of up to 100k an hour and make the rider feel like they're a pro, essentially. That was kind of the aim.
I'm sure the other Van Rysel road bikes were capable of hitting 100 kilometers per hour as well.
Yeah, didn't they just
in the right
hit
conditions?
Like 88 kilometers per hour in the sprint finish?
And in fact, the e-bike concept here is the only one that is actually limited in speed.
It was quite clear as well when I actually spoke with one of the product managers that it is that speed will probably be on a descent anyway. So. Yeah.
Suvi, what was the story with the shoes? Did I see one of the shoes had like a SRAM battery or something? What?
Yeah.
What the heck?
So the shoes tighten. They're just constant. They're attached to the axle, so there's no cleats and whatsoever. You can't detach them from the bike.
So when you crash, you break your leg. Ask me how I know.
Well, there were some safety things.
That's the
concept. Break your leg. So the shoes, you can tighten them from the handlebars. So they had this idea of whatever Formula One style cockpit thing where you've got loads of buttons at the handlebar and you can control everything from there, including tightening and loosening your shoes. So the battery
It's safer.
on the it's safer because you don't have to bend down and reach down and tighten and untighten loosen your shoes.
Adam Hansen was working on like a remotely controlled retention system for his homemade carbon shoes at one point. I don't know if he actually used it in a race ring, but he was definitely working on something like that.
Did he patent it? Because Van Rysel has 2 patents on these shoes. So as much as we can talk about it, that this is a concept, there are certain things about the whole concept that Van Rysel clearly wants to bring into reality at some point, because you wouldn't, well, maybe you would, get a patent for something that's never going to become reality, but aspects of them.
I mean, other than Ronan, are people adjusting their shoes so frequently that they need remote control?
I'd love that.
Really?
Yeah. I hate, and also
like you'd love another battery on the bike and another remote on the bike.
I would love that, absolutely. I love charging batteries. But also in the winter, which the last few months, there's been more of a gripe, because you tighten your shoes when you leave the house, and then you have overshoes.
Fair.
And then you realize during the ride, like, it just feels a little loose, or it feels a little
you
too
ain't
tight,
getting overshoes over these things, Suvi.
No, but you don't need overshoes. You could just press a button and your shoes tighten and loosen.
Or you press a button and your shoes heat, maybe more useful.
Oh, well, that would be as well. I don't think this is a winter bike anyway.
Is the bigger point here not that the aerodynamics, and like we might be poking fun at this slightly or having a bit of a laugh at this, but shoe aero is a serious area of opportunity. I spoke to one person in the know recently who was estimating that, or they had estimated that the drag on one of their World Tour riders just from the shoes alone could be 25 watts. So, they are one area that's never really been, I mean, we have smooth shoes and we have overshoes but the actual shape has never properly been tackled. And not even the shape, just how the flow interacts with the shoe and how the wake forms off the back of it is more, offers more opportunity than even just like making a pointy shoe or something like that. Which is what Van Rysel have tried to do here. They have these channels and vents and that are supposed to guide the flow and stuff.
Yeah, they're not coffee shop friendly or even getting off the bike friendly. So,
no. But what's Suvi? What's the general idea of the concept bike for Van Rysel? Was it just a talking piece for them at the show? Was it, as you say, was it more than that?
It was definitely more than that.
Okay.
I think a little bit of a mix. It's a little bit. It's definitely a mix of both. It was a marketing effort, 100%, because the booth that they had was probably one of the busiest at the show because of this concept, and everyone. It's a good looking, or controversial looking bike. It's nice to look at because you see something that you're gonna pick it apart and be like, could this work in the real life? And then they had the helmet cover, so like a snap-on aero lid, and the skin suit and the shoes as well. So there was some really high level engineering going into all this, clearly. So and the product managers were clear about it, that it wasn't just done to show things that will never be ridden. That it is actually going to trickle into actual products that are going to be for sale. And the bike is rideable, which is unusual for a concept bike.
Unusual. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, coming to a Decathlon store near you then.
So what you're saying is it wasn't just intended to result in a 10-minute segment on Geek Warning for Van Rysel.
Yeah. Oh, well, job done from their marketing squad. Whoops.
Mission accomplished.
Let's move on to something else that's big. 32-inch tires. I think this is another big one out of Velofollies, if I'm not mistaken. Is Schwalbe announced their entry into the 32-inch world? What's the story there?
Yeah, Schwalbe did announce that they had some of their gravel tires on display as well. Just one type of tire, but they did announce that they are looking to make 32-inch tires across the different categories. And when they were then questioned about this, whether this includes road, they were like, well, maybe not road. But March 2027, so next year, is when they expect these to enter the markets.
Mm.
And they did list a whole host of benefits, and seems like they're truly behind the bigger wheel size / tire size.
Yeah. So I think that's the unique thing is like they're doing mountain bike and gravel. We've seen a few bikes of each, and there's obviously a lot of industry talk that 32-inch was initially conceptualized for cross-country mountain bike, but there's a lot of interest in the gravel space. I just saw that Baum Cycles in Australia has just announced they've opened up orders on their gravel bike that they showed last year, 32-inch gravel bike. We'll have that on the site by the time you're listening to this. Yeah, I think the road side is interesting in that I think the UCI actually prevents that from being a possibility for racing because there's the maximum diameter, I believe, Ronan.
Yeah, there is.
That is true.
Yeah.
Which a 32-inch would be bigger than.
Yeah, I do think anyone buying into like a 32-inch gravel bike would probably want the option to have some road tires for that bike. So I think that's probably where the market opportunity is for slick / road going 32-inch tires. So
I mean, yeah, there are already road tires that are, when mounted, are outside what the UCI allows for racing.
Yeah.
Most customers aren't participating in UCI sanctioned events. So
yeah,
the likes of like Vittoria and Pirelli's 40 and 42s and stuff like that, they're all, when you measure them, they're going to be way above what the UCI allows.
Yeah. And the 32-inch wheel is nowhere near within the realms of what is allowed within those rules. But I think it is interesting in that tires are very costly to manufacture, to open up the molds for these things and the new machinery that they have to invest in to get these made. And a tire manufacturer is probably not going to take that punt without significant orders in place from bike brands or wheel manufacturers. So I think it is quite telling that Maxxis now has Schwalbe joining it in that movement. So yeah, I think that we're going to see a wave of these bikes.
I mean, the real question is why Van Rysel didn't have 32-inch wheels and tires on that concept bike.
Yeah, they got to leave something on the table for next year.
There's no diameter rule in triathlon as far as I know.
All right. Well, that's a scary thought. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some industry news. And we're back. All right, Suvi, how were the vibes at Velofollies? Was everyone enthusiastic, thinking that the industry's on the way up, or was there talk of some of the layoffs that we're seeing on the doing the rounds?
I think the feelings at all trade shows are really mixed. It depends who you ask, and Velofollies was no exception in that. And I think the timing of the show is interesting because it's the beginning of the year, and I feel that's something that makes people more optimistic. And I chatted with someone about this, that every time we meet at Velofollies, they're like, "Oh, this is going to be the year. The industry is going to get back on its feet, and this is going to be the year." And has any of the last 5 years been the year? No.
But one of these years, it's going to be the year.
Exactly. It's going to be. If you just keep saying it, it will happen. But that was kind of the sentiment. There were some brands that said they are a bit worried about what's going on. There's been some major layoffs, and companies are struggling, going bankrupt. And obviously these people who work in the industry, they know a lot more than even we do about exactly what is happening in some big corporations. So yeah, there's some what do you call it, dark clouds.
So yeah, perhaps the darkest cloud came out of Klebens with Canyon announcing some pretty significant layoffs. I mean, what did that entail, Suvi?
Yeah, so Canyon, who actually did have a booth at Velofollies, and the news broke out, I believe, on the Monday after the show or Tuesday, so very soon after the show. They are laying off 20% of their headquarters staff, so 320 roles they have about 1,600 people employed.
Yeah.
So a big number.
Yeah, definitely a scary time to be in the space. And Ronan, I think you've been working on some original reporting of other layoffs that we've been hearing about, and I believe you're working on something which hopefully will be live by the time this publishes.
Yeah, maybe not going to just. I mean, as is always the case with these types of stories, it's a very sensitive topic, and there are our thoughts, I think, first and foremost, are with the staff members laid off, and then also with the staff who are left behind, because typically someone has to pick up the work of the people who were let go. Those roles don't just disappear. So that there are never any winners in any of these situations. But yeah, Canyon's certainly not alone. There are other major brands with significant layoffs already this year. And yeah, there more than likely will be a story live by the time you're listening to this podcast. Yeah, maybe leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, we won't mention just who. Is a developing story that we're trying to report on. So I guess the other dark cloud that came out in the past week was one of the more exciting products that we've been covering in recent years. I know, Ronan, you've been covering this from its very first public sighting, which is Gravaa has announced its bankruptcy. What's for those that weren't familiar with Gravaa, what was that?
It was the tyre inflation and deflation system that was built into the front and rear hubs of their. Gravaa had their own hubs. The system was called the CAPS, adjustable tire pressure system, and basically with the touch of 2 buttons on your handlebars, you could inflate and deflate the front and rear tires. It worked with like a pneumatic pump that was powered by the rotation of the wheels, and I was always excited by this technology. I think I first tried it Eurobike 2021, so it's been around for a while.
Yep, we've seen it used by like Marion Vos in Paris-Roubaix.
Yep. Well, not just Marion Vos used it at the Gravaa World Championships where she won.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Pauline Ferrand-Prévot used it in Paris-Roubaix, which she won last year. And the Visma Lisa Biker, Jumbo Visma as it used to be, they've used it at multiple Paris-Roubaix, but it never really seemed to get any. Like, I first seen it in 2021, and then it went quiet for a couple of years, and then it turned up at Paris-Roubaix, and it never really seemed to go fully commercially available. You could order wheel sets with the hub built into it from the Gravaa website, and I do know of some wheel manufacturers and wheel brands who had recently penned deals, let's say, to include the system in their wheels. Yeah, ultimately, it seemed to have challenges which slowed down its bringing it to the market, and that delay seems to have cost them now because last week.
I think it's sadly a perfect product example of something that can be so great for performance and so great for as a professional racing product, but not commercially viable.
And not commercially viable does not mean that it's also not useful, applicable, beneficial for everyday riders. It could well have been, but it's a big step for something to be useful and neat and something we all get excited about to be something that actually sells well enough to keep a company alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. Right up until the end, they'll try to they're planning to release a version that was compatible with tubeless tire sealant, but the versions they had prior to that, I believe, weren't. So that's a pretty big barrier to overcome for a consumer to purchase into that system. But yeah, anyway, hopefully that design finds its way into new hands because as mentioned, that can be a game changer in some ways. The ability to change to variable conditions just made so much sense.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. Well, let's thoughts go out to everyone that's has found themselves without work in the last few weeks, and I guess it's probably worth noting that we tend to cover these things because it does have a flow-on effect throughout the bike industry that we love so much, and I mean these jobs are sort of symbolic and directly aligned to how the industry as a whole is going, and also does give an indication into general trends as well. How brands are performing, and that's why I report on it. I mean, it's
also just how companies deal with these situations, and how the human in the middle of it all is considered, how that news is delivered. It's never going to be good news, but there are softer ways to land this news than a blunt blanket email or whatever. Like and I do know of some companies who are trying to do the best they can, aware of the fact that this unfortunate news does have to come. They do have to make these difficult decisions, but at least trying to do it in the softest way possible. And then other brands just being seemingly pretty ruthless about it.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll keep reporting on it. It definitely matters. And again, thoughts go out to those that are going through some hard times at the moment off the back of these announcements. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll come back with something that's been on our mind. And we're back. This one's been on my mind, which it comes off the back of me building up a brand new open up, which excitedly I managed to build up with new Campagnolo Super Record X. So I am now actively working on a review for that. That's exciting. But what came of that build was a reminder of a pet peeve of mine, which is bikes that don't allow you to have spaces above the stem. So basically bikes that force you to cut the steerer to the exact height that you need, and there's no option to lower the stem further without further cutting the steerer tube. And I just don't like that. I really think that bikes should allow you to ride them and get a feel for what that handlebar height does and what the correct stem height is for you before you commit to cutting the bike. Thoughts?
So many thoughts.
My thought is what exactly on the open is it that prevents that?
So they're using their own handlebar system, which has some pretty clever things in it. It's actually like this flippable wedge system. So the idea is that their stem is adjustable in length without having to replace the stem. So you can adjust it in 5mm increments across, I believe, off the top of my head, I think it's a 20mm range. It might be 25mm. But yeah, so the idea is that they don't need to have 20 different one-piece handlebar configurations available. They can have 3 stem lengths and then all the handlebar width options amongst that. So they really cut down the number of options they need. And it also means that you don't need to stress so heavily about getting the exact right cockpit. If you know your handlebar width, you can kind of hit the right window and you've got 5-10 mil to play here and there. And I think that's pretty cool. But then it fell apart for me at the having to cut the steerer tube to within a 2mm window of the correct length. Yes, you can go lower, assuming you're running headset spaces, but you can't go higher. And I tend to, at least with my test bikes, I tend to like to leave 10 to 15 mil more than I think I'll need. One, to help with the future sale of that bike because it's not my bike, but 2, it just gives me the freedom to like actually play with the fit and get a feel for, in case I went too low or in case the bike is giving me some odd handling characteristics, I can sort of play with what's causing that. But it's not so easy here. So yeah, I know this is sort of an issue that I complained about first when bikes first started going to like hidden cable routing. I know FSA's system sort of suffered from this issue as well, and that was a pet peeve of mine on that bike. But I don't know. I thought we'd pass this point. Seemingly, we're not.
Is there anything inherent about the design that means it just could not have done this, or is it just an oversight?
It's pretty weird. It's pretty unique. So I think it probably would have been possible, but would have required some pretty unique headset spaces to be added into the box to be designed specifically for that purpose, because there's some non-round interfaces going on there. Like it's a diamond-shaped steerer tube with like a square-edged stem face. So that I think they would have needed to like probably offer a different stem top cap and a few other things. I think maybe it was just too hard basket, and the easier option was just, this is how it is, and anything else we do might, it might introduce some safety issues. But even still, I don't know. I feel like that.
Again, it sounds like there's some safety issues introduced there.
The design is unique. I'll give them that. So, yeah, that's something I'll get into the review with. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just left really wishing that every bike would allow you to run 10 to 15 mil of spacer.
I guess what they're probably thinking is that, everybody has a bike fit these days. You know your numbers. You don't need the adjustability. But, I mean, first of all, I would argue
Does everybody have a bike fit?
Well, yeah, I would argue against that because, everybody might have a bike fit, but whether that bike fit is right or wrong is up for debate. And
the
also,
fit might not stay the same.
Exactly.
Which I think is a big, even if you don't sell the bike, because that's an easy one that you would say. And for a test bikes, I would always want to have the same flexibility that you mentioned, Dave, to be able to swap it, because I know the bike's not going to stay with me. So I sometimes feel bad when brands ask to cut the steerer to my preference, and then I'm like, well, what are you going to do with this bike after? Well, whoever gets it is going to have to ride with what I rode with.
100%.
But then even for someone who just might have that bike, think about riding it for 7 years, say, your fit is probably going to change. Maybe you want to either way, you want to lift it, or you can go lower.
Or you just, no, well, maybe you just want to try lower and see how it feels for a week or two. And then, oh no, I'm going to go back up. But, to try it, you have to cut it, in which case you can't go back up.
Yeah.
And the dynamic nature of like gravel tech at the moment, we're seeing quite a few riders starting to use like bigger front tires to rear tires. Yes, it's often because it's what they can actually fit in the bike. They can't fit as big of a rear tire on. But that change as well would change the ride height of the bike. And so you might find that some riders would actually adapt their handlebar height to offset that. For me, on my own gravel bike, I've been playing with a lot of different forks, and I definitely move the handlebar height up and down depending on the axle to crown height of the fork. Some forks are corrected for 30 mil travel, others are 40 mil travel, and others are lower than all of that. And so, that flexibility is really important to me on a bike like that. Okay, this open up is not like that. You can't put a suspension fork on it, but I don't know. I still want that freedom.
It's another reminder to me that we can't have our cake and eat it as riders, but so often the industry wants to sell us the idea of having your cake and eating it, because they've seemingly addressed one issue in that fixed stem length, which is anybody who listens to this podcast will know how much of a pet peeve of that is of mine. But then they've taken away the adjustability and height, and it's like, can we? This stem length adjustability sounds. I'm all for that. That sounds great, provided it works well. I'll be looking forward to your review, Dave, to see if it does. But yeah, and at the same time, we're always, maybe not in this case, but certainly on the performance road side of things, we're always told about, we've left no stone unturned and we've done everything to maximize performance, and then you'll question a brand on, well, I mean, I can't get a replacement. I can't get a different stem length in this suspension. Oh yeah, but people don't really do that. So, well, you're telling me that you've left no stone unturned, but actually that big stone is left unturned, and you're telling me that it doesn't matter. Well, if it doesn't matter, why do all the other stones being turned over matter at all? I don't know if I'm making any sense. I hope you can follow that, but it's just...
No, you are. And yeah, I think it goes back to like, yes, this bike, you can just start with a taller steerer length and cut down as you figure out it's too high, but it's a very one directional approach to the problem, right? You're like, I would like to try lower. Okay, let's cut the steerer. I preferred it how it was before. Okay, new fork.
Then you have to get a racer bar, but then you can't get that because it doesn't fit. Right?
Yep. So yeah, it's anyway, it's not a big ask, but I would like to ask that brands designing new, forever more complicated and fancy one-piece cockpits and all that just do consider the idea that it's not an impractical ask to ask that we can have spaces above the stem temporarily while we figure out fit. So
I don't want to put brands off the idea of doing the adjustable stem length thing, though. Please, someone, everybody, keep thinking and considering of ways to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how Open have done that on this bike. It is definitely a unique system. Perhaps the most interesting element of all of it is the very strict instructions in the manual to not use grease, which I thought was quite interesting. It is also a self-aligning stem to the front wheel, which I assume is no small feat. The what?
And is it actually straight?
They got it right. To have
self-aligning arrows.
The brake mounts were not even close, but thankfully the handlebar does align perfectly to the front wheel.
Yeah, it's not self-misaligning.
It is not self-misaligning. No, thankfully not. That was an early problem I know in like D-shaped seat posts for some bikes. The industry has figured that out, and thankfully Open has not fallen into that trap. But not everything on the bike was as straight as it should be. But thankfully this one key area worked out. So all right, well, I think that might be the end of the free version of this episode, where we can head on over to the Ask a Wrench section for our members. But before we do, I'm just going to give a little quick shout out to one of my favorite shows on the calendar, which is Made out of Portland, USA. And just a quick note that they've put tickets on sale a lot earlier than they normally do. But I think exhibitors are more than 75% booked out. But consumer tickets are now on sale. So if you're in the area or you can make it, it's definitely a show worth supporting. It's very, very cool scene to see so many handmade builders in one spot. Do consider it. Not paid to say that. Suvi, Ronan, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right. Well, let's head on over to Ask a Wrench with Zach Edwards. Thanks, everyone.